I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to analyze to you why people get better media. That means why there's a problem with media people currently consume of access, quantity, and quality. And 2, why tomorrow people are likely to create better personal media for themselves. Before that, let's frame and mechanize this debate. Today, word-generating AI, like GPT-3, can write short stories or articles. Music AI can create free open-source classical music that people cannot tell apart from real composers. And image AI can generate an image based on prompts for a logo for your company or whatever you want. In the near future, which is where this debate happens, we get more and better art, more entertaining media, and more autonomy for individual creators and consumers. Because we're looking at 2 important things that advance in AI. 1, the quality. We think that all of these existing AIs become much better at what they do. And 2, how many types of media I can fit within this. So we also fit movies and TV shows that currently AI cannot generate. It's too difficult. What is our mechanism? We are creating entertainment media. That media now has a unique file that's being created. Anyone I send it to can access it. That means I still get to create. I simply create via AI. I still get to share my favorite media with my close friends and family if I so desire. Let's talk quickly about existing media, because I think one important place... Yes?
Can you just emphasize what kind of regulation you're going to have on that and what kind of regulation you're not going to have?
As far as I'm concerned, anything that if you look up on the internet, the FBI puts you on a list. If you put it into the AI generator, the FBI will put you on a list. I hope that deals with you. Okay, on existing media. Why are we okay with existing media being significantly harmed? Because they're being replaced by machines, and this happens all the time. This is just called progress, right? The agricultural revolution put a lot of people out of a job. The industrial revolution had machines replacing people who spent years becoming experts at manufacturing something very specific and working with their hands. But that's okay, because when you do a job, you provide a unique value. If you cannot provide a unique value, you don't have a job. But we also just think that we're in a period with an AI revolution that many people's jobs are being lost, and governments are becoming better at retraining. They plan for this problem by offering UBI or better safety nets. We think this is even more likely in the near future. Now, note that everyone becomes a creator. That is, even if we are harming some established producers and directors and actors making billions or millions of Hollywood, everyone else who is creative in the status quo doesn't have access to creating their own media. Why do we make it so anyone can? We're lowering the entry barrier. All you need is a computer, because people want to. This is many of the people who already work for these industries, but now I don't have to work on lighting or work on script editing. I can create my entire art. Thirdly, people have more creative autonomy, because no one else is there to argue with them. It is my own baby. What is this equivalent to? Think of the band Gorillaz. It's an entire band, right? Bassist, drummer, guitar. It's all made by a single person using computer-generated music. We think that these people can publicize their content. And if I'm good enough at tweaking the settings, realizing the cultural zeitgeist, and creating media that the average consumer likes more than what they create for themselves, I still have an audience. Let's talk about why people get better media for themselves, starting with the problem with media in the status quo. First of all, people lack access to it. It is locked to certain streaming services, to certain regions. Disney Plus came to Israel, that's great, until now none of us can access them. Oh, there's a cool series, oh, but it's on Hulu, and that's not here at all. We think that it's expensive to have them all, and most people don't. We think that many of these shows get taken off of these websites and are simply difficult to access and find, especially older media. But secondly, we think people run out of things to consume. Why? Many people like small genres. If I like medieval fantasy, maybe 2 good shows come out every year, 2 decent shows. If I like Turkish telenovelas. Now, we also think that it's a question of minority access. If I don't speak English, for example, I am limited only to whatever's created in my mother's tongue, which oftentimes might not be anything. If I like fantasy in Hebrew, good luck for me. Thirdly, we think people just consume a ton. People work from home, people Netflix and chill. We replace the movie theater with watching TV. The average time people spend consuming media is higher now than it has ever been before. And at the same time, most people don't like old archived media. They want media that's relevant and actual to their lives. And their favorite show ends and they cannot create more. Or they have to wait for the next season, biting their teeth, waiting a year to know what happens to their story. Why do we get better personal media on our side? 3 main reasons. quantity and diversity, personal taste, and ease of creation. Let's start with quantity and diversity. This is the flip side to the access from before, right? This is a free AI that anyone can access that is part of our fiat within this debate. That means that rather than having to have multiple subscriptions, I simply access it. We also think that in terms of quantity, I can always create more. I can try 5 different settings and features for the sci-fi show. Maybe I want to try it set in space and on Mars and in a spaceship, and I want to see what comes out best. I can create endless seasons for my show. Once I put in good parameters, I simply tell it, give me another season, and I can keep watching as long as I enjoy it. But after quantity and diversity, there's also the question of ease of creation. Because if I liked something, but I didn't like it enough, I can figure out what it is that I didn't like. Instead of writing this as a 4-star review of what I didn't quite like about the show, I can tweak it. Instead of settling for a show that I only give 4 stars, I say, no, hold on. How can I make this show better for me? What do I need to change about it? It's easy and it's quick. And finally, personal taste. People know what they want and they know how to get it. People are most proximate to their own tastes, to their past experiences, to their world of definitions and simply their vocabulary and the words they like. Secondly, people are most aware of their own personal response and reaction to media, past and present. What do I feel this is lacking? What have I always felt is lacking? Yes, opening.
Sounds to me like what they want to support is just free softwares that will enable me to edit videos and softwares. Why do I need AI to actually do all those things?
I cannot create an 8-season-long cartoon with free software unless that software is this magical software from the Motion. Let's continue with personal taste. People, we also think that in a world where this exists, there are reports on tutorials on how to do a better job. Just like even people who are tech illiterate know how to set up their iPhone and know how to access Netflix today because we make it easy for them. But past that, we think people have learned expertise. That means that over time, with the repeated action of creating my media, I become better at this. Why do we win this debate? We think people spend a massive quantity of their time trying to enjoy media. And we think that they have that right and prerogative. It's part of their autonomy. We want to maximize their utility from doing this. At the same time, we want to maximize access, and we want to maximize the autonomy of both creators and consumers to create and get the content that they most want and that most appeals to them. We think that this is going to be enough to win from OG, and so I was very proud to stand in proposition.
I'll begin with your permission in 3, 2, 1. First, I'm going to talk about what we get as a unique value, to get an extensive version of Ayal Mor before the debate rebuttal. First, I want to do a quick point of preemptive. Any social change that Annie is going to make is a hung case against us, which we do not get a chance to engage. They have to give us PR, and also you can't consider this too much. Now let's get into the case. Do you think the art industry will go away with it? First, Eyal preemptively dwelled this. Yes, he said we get on our side utility, enjoyment for each and every person. This is the impact we went to. All people, extremely important to them. In the end, the goal and the mean of art is value to people. I think the most value is most enjoyment. So I think he answered this correctly. But in addition, several answers. First, I think that industry is going to remain on some level. Why? Because of their analysis. First, I have a wanting to go to be exposed to something different. I want to expand my horizon. I want to have different kinds of context and get it out. So there is still demand for those stuff. Secondly, I want a communal experience. Stuff like Disney, stuff like Marvel, they have reputation, they have a franchise, they have all of the capital to cause people to want to buy into their stuff. So they still are likely to see those stuff at some level. Thirdly, I have government investment. The government wants people to be more educated. I still have the problems in university. I still have a public, public broadcasting. All of the stuff is still used as a tool to give measures to open people's horizons. So this also engages really well with them. To the extent where people are still open to stuff and becoming liberal because they still have education, they still have their family, still what's popular, still have conversations among themselves, so they are still exposed to different kinds of stuff. Also, I realize that I can share my stuff. I think I am more liberal and open when I see other people's experience through their AI. About people who don't know what they want, AI knows to suggest to me what I want. It has access to my Google searches, social media, plus there's still an industry of recommending and creating media, and about when it's in the click of a button, I won't have any reason to create. Already today we have Spotify and Netflix, and people create because of the unique value it gives them, because it gives them a sense of meaning, of belonging, of uniqueness, so with the estimator we have wanting to create. Let's get into the positive data. Okay, this is an art debate. we have to talk about what we want to get for art. We say, firstly, we want enjoyment, and Ayal analyzes really, really well. I want to analyze more stuff for you, where we get better sense of meaning, catharsis, this exploration of self, stuff like that. What do I get tomorrow that I do not get today? Firstly, I think I get something that is unique and of my own that I can go into inside. A world I can build for myself and go into inside. Why is this unique? Why is it not enough to make a drawing, write short stories, stuff like that? Firstly, the level of richness, the experience. I can define to the AI many details, and it is like going to a movie, to a series, to something that is long, has many characters, many complexities, many stuff that represent me, what I want, my personality, all of my stuff. Secondly, how vivid it is. It is extremely vivid to see it in real life. It's like I go into and I in it myself. When you watch a movie and it's so captivating and it's like in 4D and you have your earphones, something, you feel like you're in that and you made this movie that is based on your recommendation, on your wants, on your personality, on what you define the AI and request for it. Thirdly, accessibility. I think most people cannot write a book, cannot make a movie, cannot take part in the art industry, which is already like pretty small. Most people don't have access to people who are poor and stuff like that. We think that's what we can. Tomorrow this opens up this opportunity to be for everyone. Everyone is a director and it's better. I can define the theme, I can tweak the stuff, I can make changes, I can try many stuff. It gives access to, I can give it access to my unique personality, like they give it to write my thoughts, to write what I want, to make it seriously. So I get the feeling of being like a god. I get the feeling of creation because I created a world tomorrow. We agree with that it's important to have access to create. We just think we get more on our side. I think the creation process is extremely long because I have to think about the theme, think about the narrative, think about the point of view, think about the experience I want to use, and give it all to the AI. This is a very meaningful creation progress. This gives me all the sense of meaning. Secondly, it allows me to explore myself and to know myself better in a unique way. How? Firstly, it's a unique look in the mirror. There is absolutely no other way to look into my soul in this level of depth. I can give it my deepest wants, my deepest fears, my deepest secrets, and see what comes out. Something that's based amongst myself and my personality and what I define as important and what I prioritize and what I want to see in the world. What does this mean? Let's break it down to the ground. Firstly, I can learn from stuff. I can see how it looks like. For example, I can look at, maybe I have trauma in my past, and it's giving me a unique way to pose it. I can define the story of this trauma happening in many ways. To define the point of view, where it happened, how it ended. Is it a happy story? Is it a sad story? Is it a redemption story? Is the character balanced? Who do we get to see the sad story? I can understand the experience that people have, that I have from different ways. Secondly, I can experience, again, meaningful experience, or look how a meaningful experience look in the world in a way that I define, not on someone else's ground, on someone else's metric, but I am emotionally connected. I can see how it would be like to win a competition, to be a programmer, to be a pilot, to be, I don't know, married, or have kids, or different orientation, stuff like that. I can look at situations who are meaningful. I think this also allows me better communication. Why? Because I can share those stuff with other people. This is a way for me to explain that I cannot explain. It's really hard for me to explain my deepest desire, my deepest fear, what I envision, what is my dream. This gives me a world of my own I can create and share. We think there are a lot of impacts, but before that, any extension?
Yes, aren't you concerned about all the ways that malicious actors can abuse this technology?
Okay, I think malicious actors already do many bad stuff in the world without this. We already see this, for example, in deepfake and how they use pictures of Zelensky to publish lies. We see it in ways they go into prison. We see it in many ways. I think there are ways to fight against malicious actors through regulation, through teaching people to be responsible, through education. We think this is a way the world changes in a very significant way. And when the world changes, you cannot assume that everything remains the same. I think government will take appropriate actions. People will educate their children in classroom. There will be a class on how to do those stuff and how to experience those stuff. There will be awareness to all of those stuff. And even if there's some malicious stuff, this is not all part of it, all cases, yes? Because if it was all cases, no one would use this technology. If it was all cases, it's malicious, no one would have an interest. We think there are many cases where it's good use, where it's malicious, and those cases outweigh the malicious cases. Yeah, okay. So, what are the impacts? Firstly, we get enjoyment much more on our side. And I analyze that many people do not have what they want. They feel like the world is depressing. They feel like nothing is completely suited to them. They're living their everyday life, boring job, baby crying, wife angry. They want something of their own, something unique that's completely suitable. This is an extreme impact on their life. At the end of the day, I have something completely what I want, 100% suitable for me, unique enjoyment, which really improves my life. Secondly, we talk about sense of meaning, feeling closer to my creation, to myself, by being a part of someone who really creates a world. Thirdly, I think it exposes me to a new world, to my own world from new eyes, which gives me better meaning of myself, because we have all the goals of art, because society and brothers and everyone live better and knowledge of better, please vote for Jesus.
Thanks very much, Ms. Fancy. The deputy opposition.
לא, זה החלק הכי משמח בסיפור.
הם מעודדים את כולם.
מה, כאילו פעם לך שזה הרים לי כאילו?
לא, זה מדהים, זה באמת, אני יכולה על זה.
May I, brother? 2 points in my speech. The first one is going to talk about art. The second one is going to talk about the effects on specific people. I'm going to talk about different views. I'm going to use all of the examples that I just read on ניגונים ספונטניים וניתוחים ספונטניים. It's actually helpful. But before that, 2 points of extreme rebuttal. A, not all of my speech is 100 case, right? There is a deputy leader of opposition, therefore I am able to add the material, Tal. And secondly, just notice the fact that Tal, on minute 6, adds, no, now we're going to have regulation on these things and we're going to teach that. I asked Ayal on the PM speech, saying what kind of regulation are we going to have. He said only the regulation that only now exists and under the FBI. Tal does not have the opposition to say, the fear to say that we're going to add the regulation on minute 6. Let's jump in. My first point regarding art, right? Because let's just tackle whatever we just got from opening government, right? The main issue that they put in this debate is that, look, people today just don't have enough entertainment, right? People need more things to watch, more songs to read, more things to read. And I'm truly not sure how is that the case when Ayal himself tells us you have Netflix, you have Yes, you have Hot, you have every fucking thing on TV, right? I'm truly not sure why is that even a problem in this world. The only thing they say is that, look, and in answer to your POI, sometimes I want to watch a cartoon and I don't have season 8. I'm truly not sure if that's the only impact given to us. I'm going to weigh it out pretty easily, although I suck at weighing that out. But let's give many more reasons to the case that they give us. A, notice that we truly think that those people that we want to do that can create that with free software, right? If they want to do that as well, they can just edit and do that. We're not sure why they need AI. Secondly, all the people that they talk that are going to put their soul in it and are going to be in all the parts of the process. Notice that people that want to be in every part of the process will just create a regular movie and will not let AI to do whatever the fuck he wants, right? Therefore, we think that those people are not the people that we're talking about. Thirdly, we just think that many people are lazy, right? I really like debating. Most of the cases I'm not actually doing a lot of debate because I'm pretty lazy or I like it. Truly not sure why it's going to change. And fourthly, notice that I'm truly not sure why people are going to enjoy the process, right? Just because I'm going to add the fact that I like a specific cartoon, why would I even like the outcome, right? The reason why I like to watch Dragon Ball Z is because I like the brain of the creator and I want to see his creation. I'm not sure that an AI will manage to do exactly that. I'm also going to wait out in a second, okay? Let's talk about what Maya already gives you, right? Maya gives you a lot of impacts that get no answer at all regarding art, right? Maya explains to you the effects it has on the entire population of the art industry, right? Maya explains to you exactly how many people are going to be fired, how many people are going to be affected. When we weigh it out against people that are maybe going to have season 8, I'm totally not sure about the impact. But notice more things that are unique to art, right? We think that in the status quo, people see art, and during when they watch or listen to it, they hear a lot of criticism, right? Because when I have limited amount of options, and some of those options actually contain critic views, then I can actually break the echo chamber. What do I mean by that? A, many of the movies right now have role models that are for minorities, right? Now today, if that's the best movie that there is on TV, and I have to watch it, or all of the series now have minorities because that's what people want to see today, even the extremist people have to watch that and see those role models. Secondly, a lot of things actually contain criticism, right? Even on capitalism, on socialism. We think that not in advance you know all the criticism that shows TVs and songs are going to have. Only when you listen to it and you actually can be affected by the criticism. When you're only going to create the things that you want, you're going to create an echo chamber that will not break exactly for those extreme people, the thing that they already now listen and hear. Therefore, many of the benefits of Argaman are going to be lost right now because exactly of the things that opening government is telling you. And they say, look, they can send it to their friends and family, exactly the echo chamber that we're trying to break. Now, notice that now when we're going to have that software, people are going to just abandon whatever they have on TV or Spotify, right? Because if it's that easy to create that, and if people are going to prefer that, then we're going to lose all of that. Notice that we think that the extreme people that needs to hear those criticism are those people that are going to commit crimes later on, are those people that are going to actually vote for extreme politicians, and those are the people that want to be affected by the criticism. We lose that for season 8 of cartoon. Before I explain exactly the effect on society, extension.
Yeah, Maya told us about Nigerian writer that she got suggestion for it. We think that on both sides we have suggestion, but on our side we have much more Nigerian narratives that actually tell the truth and actually getting their goal much better.
I think that on YouTube, Netflix, Disney Plus, already Nigerian are things that are being popular. If so many people will want to watch it and want to hear it, then there's many people that will pay for it and we're going to get it anyway. It really don't show what the delta is in this debate. Let's talk about society, right? Because we think that opening government says the only regulation they're going to have is the FBI, right? Notice that today, I can paint a picture of somebody naked with his face and it's not going to be regulated under the FBI. I can create a movie if I create it by my own and the FBI will not regulate that. So therefore, FBI does not actually captures most of the abuses that are going to happen right now, and governments don't have the fear to say that we're going to regulate all of those things. What does it mean? It means abuse on 3 levels. A, nudity. Notice that if you know Dell-E or Google Photos, you know that the reason why those softwares were not published to the public is because of fear of abuse, right? Once I put a face of myself, say any Schwartz in a specific sex position, in a specific scenario, people can create movies of me doing that. Notice that because those are not real pictures and I do not actually interfere with the privacy of any Schwartz, therefore nobody can actually arrest me. But we think that on 2 levels there's a problem with that. The principle level. Notice that possession to itself and distribution of those things are something that in the status quo we think it's just immoral because it's going to look like me doing that. Secondly, we just think that they're going to have effect on my life. The fact that anyone that just saw me in this debate video and want to do things with my face can do that means it's going to ruin my life. Everybody in this room can see me naked. Everybody in this room can see me do things that I don't want. Everybody in this room can hear me saying things that are not my opinions. In every debate video, you will see that speaker was allocated with things. They are not going to put that specific caption right now. We think that the fact that people and everybody are going to suffer from that is a much likely disadvantage of doing that motion. And notice that we know that people are going to do it because porn is a thing, because bad internet, because black market is a thing. We think they're going to abuse it. Secondly, minorities. We think that there's going to be a lot of videos that are now going to do exactly that, right? Look, the minorities did something X, therefore we should ban them. A lot of fake news that are going to be created and distributed. If you hate fake news now, notice how much easier it's going to be then. We think that once you wait, people that already have entertainment, already have alternatives, and even if they have to wait a month or a year or 2 years for the next season of the things that they want to see, we still think it does not match to someone that will not be able to work publicly because somebody saw a video of them naked, and the amount of people that are going to be hurt is just tremendous. For all of those reasons, oppose the motion.
Thanks again at that opening. Captain, over the closing houses, and then have a couple of for the government. Here.
Panel, when I open my Netflix account, all the movies it suggests to me are Holocaust movies. I don't know why, but it's always about the Holocaust with them people. Maybe it's because I click it one time after the one time after the one time and creates an echo chamber of Holocaust that is already happening today. This is our main response for the case brought to us by side opening opposition. Because that echo chamber exists today, specifically in Disney Plus, specifically in Netflix, because they want you to continue watching. They want you to feed you the things that you like. If someone, for example, I don't know, likes Holocaust movies, then he will see all the time Holocaust movies, so it doesn't change the debate. You think it is better that that person talks with his family, because if he's such a criminal that maybe goes and does school shootings, most of the time his family doesn't like that. That's our first rebuttal, and we think that also handles much of the suggestion thing. We think that in most cases, some of the movies we're talking about that will be created by AI will be also available on Netflix or available on YouTube, etc. People will suggest one to another their links. So we don't think that this, you can suggest things, etc. stands in debate. We still think that we can consume media in the same way. Some more rebuttals. So, and it tells us, look, you can abuse sexting. We think this is horrible. Unfortunately, it is happening today. It is happening today, unfortunately, with deep fakes as we know it. Because the AI, because you don't need to be very sophisticated to take an existing sex tape and just swap the face there. And that is what is already happening today. We don't think there is a delta when you create a new sex tape with someone there. So unfortunately, we think this is uncomparative. Lastly, about fake news, we think that literally it is really easy to flag it. If the FBI has any control over that, they cannot control not to spread the fake news, but they can know that that video was created by the AI. So it is really easy for each company to actually flag it. Moreover, we think that today there is awareness, for example, for deep fakes, and people are much more suspicious to that. People will be also more suspicious to that. Two arguments in my speech. Firstly, I will talk about huge effects for disenfranchised communities, and secondly, I will talk about why creative AI will bring more happiness to art and all. Let's start. Firstly, we think that what is actually we done for disenfranchised communities? We think that we firstly talk about things that are really important for the identities of communities. When we talk about hymns, when we talk about songs, when we talk about movies and identities, when we talk about things about Jenin for the Palestinians, when we talk about Tel Rwanda, we think that we're talking about literally really important identity pieces that are important for them. We talk about narratives of my identity, literally seeing films that are about my black gay identity, that are literally about a specific community, about my Indian community, about my Native American community that exists. All these things are super important. We think that even if there are things there, they are really, really few. And specifically, they show maybe the biggest problems, but specific intersectional problems that are the most important for many of us, as they are also Native American, but are living specifically in a non-rural city. We think that they are most common for them, are not addressed. More, we think that my identity and my story aren't seen there. So why it's not in the status quo? Firstly, it's costing a lot of money. We think that many of these communities are also poor in many times. They don't get funds for that. You need to set up a place. More, we think that when we talk about communities in third world countries, many times they are prosecuted. They don't have the ability to do that. They don't have the ability to group themselves in many times. When you talk about even Russians in Baltic states that literally cannot form the identity because of that, and it gets much, much worse once you go south to other places. Let's talk about why will it spread. Firstly, it will spread because it is giving a message that is new. It gives me the feeling that I belong somewhere. It gives me the feeling that I really see something and really identify with something that I didn't see before. In third world countries, it gives me the feeling of resistance that is super important, of actually being able to do something and see something that is different. It's literally easy to use media to spread it, YouTube, TikTok, etc. Now, think that in terms of extent, even if most people of the community don't see that, I think that many people do. In terms of, it is bringing actually a talk and discussion about identity that isn't happening today because of its vivid picture, because it gives me a feeling that I hadn't before because of how the media actually affects people in the day-to-day. We think that every time I see music, I see pictures, I see movies, I'm just more likely to be moved by then a 40-page thing talking about Crimean Tatars. Now, we think that in terms of why it is important, there are several aspects. Firstly, when we talk about awareness, we think that the belief that there is someone that understands you and is not yourself. We don't talk about you yourself creating a movie for yourself, but rather that you see other people that are actually... Firstly, in terms of awareness, we think that now you feel that someone understands you specifically. It's not that you create a film for yourself and then you understand yourself. This is wow, you understand yourself. But rather you see other people that created specific things that talk about your experiences, your experience as a Native American, or your experience as a prosecuted minority in Russia, or everything about like that we think is really relating to people. We think that today, when you see some general movies that don't talk about the expected series, about how it is being dumped from your ex who is actually from another race, about specifically how your parents treat you, about specifically how your customs and religion pressures you in a way that you just don't feel it in other places. Secondly, we think that free speech in of itself is super important here. The will and the actual ability to express and see others and their ideas about your identity is super important. We think that the way of free speech in terms of movies, in terms of showing, for example, the history of your culture and the history of what you've done is actually something that is different than showing it in a story. We think that doing that is a free speech and important in and of itself as a right. Thirdly, we think that in terms of pressure of government, this is huge. Before I move on, I will take first.
Notice that that free speech already exists with the tools that we have right now. We're truly not sure why you have to have an AI that you maybe not even have the demand for people to watch that specific AI creation. You guys are not
No, thank you. Shame on you that you think there aren't communities who are willing to literally sacrifice their lives to see movies about their own history, whose movies cannot be created in any other way, because there isn't a deep AI that can literally talk about the literal Holocaust that the Tatars got from the Russians in 1910. We think that these places cannot happen. We think that literally creating new songs many times, and literally creating symbols that people literally identify themselves, which is the most important in order for identity building, is much more important. That doesn't happen today with your deep fakes any. Lastly, in terms of pressure on government, we think this is huge. First, just creating an identity that is more connected, that is feeling that the need to actually do something is a huge harm to government. We think that people in Xinjiang and Tibet, which are now feel more identity, for example, can have more pressure on government. We don't think there will be a coup, but now the ability of government to just say to them and just give them and teach them something else is just diminished slightly. Now they can tell us, you can do stories, but here's the thing, you cannot bring the feeling of identity, the feeling of being disenfranchised in a very long story about something in history, but rather specifically these feelings that cannot be produced because of prosecution are super important to literally bring rights and basic identity to these people. I call you to propose.
אולי נצא החוצה, כאילו במסדרון יש אור ויש כאילו ספות.
הצלחת להחזיר את זה לקצת.
We're going to just continue, so I thank the speaker very much for this speech. We extend over the side, happy to come on the level of position. Here, here. אני רוצה לבקש שכשתעלו את זה ליוטיוב זה יהיה עם כל החלקים האלה של העלייה הפעיל בתוך הזה טוב בלוגרס. אני חושב שזה לא לגיטימי שכזאת.
להעיר עליך ככה שיראו אותך, בסדר?
אני חושב שהחוויה זה יותר הסאונד.
לא יודע ש90% מהתקשורת היא לא תגודש.
טוב מאוד. כבר לדבר מחוץ לדלת, תסגור לדלת ואז לדבר על השם.
סליחה, דלת?
I can start, yeah?
Okay.
Done? Yeah. Firstly, on massive political harms that this causes. Secondly, on flipping OG's case about our arts and enjoyment. Why is the first point most important? A couple of things. First, they never just explain why art is the most important. Is the most important thing is enjoyment. They just kind of say it, right? But now we give you the positive reasons. Secondly, people project art subconsciously and consciously on their decisions, on their opinions. It influences much more of just what they view in their art. They also tend to use it later in their own life when they see and the bell drops and they see a lot of new things. They connect it to the art that they saw and it influences a lot of how they act. Thirdly, on just magnitude of impact, right? If we show you that people are getting physically harmed, emotionally harmed by this, without any relation to like, did I enjoy the art or not, I think it's more important. Fourthly, the time that I am spending connecting to this impact is much more than just me seeing the art, right? It's just because it affects me all of the time. Also, we just have this ability to escape these things. Why does this actually happen, right? We say socio-politically, this is very simple, incentive of malicious actors and capability. I think the incentives is pretty crucial, right? This is what they do in status quo, like we already got told, right? What they want to do is to have more conservative, more extremist policies and politicians and opinions out, right? They want more extremist and propaganda. This still happens today, true, but the way they do this is through art, through media, through the things that actually connect people to opinions. This is by documentaries of fake news and of actually like Holocaust denial, like with direct engagement with Boaz, I guess, on the Tatar spot, right? This looks like me posting many fake infographics, etc. Right? The capability is a little bit more tricky. Every time I watch some of these little media, I change my opinion a little bit. I opt in more and more into these fake news, into these harmful narratives, into these extreme opinions. But notice, it is now indiscriminable from real media. It is not a deep fake that I can see someone actually pasted another face, right? Because it's more accurate. It looks more real. I lose all agency to make my decision, right? Why does this happen, and what is the delta that they accuse us of not having? Everything that Eyal said. Firstly, quantity. It is infinitely more media that I am now exposed to, because instead of creating one video that I have to edit for weeks, I can just tell the company, look, make a documentary that looks very convincing on why black people should have less rights, right? Secondly, in terms of quality, again, like I said, you can actually not tell the difference between whether what is made by a human or not. We do not have these things at the same level today. But thirdly, the time, right? If it is a very short video, I can assume that it was faked, right? But if it's a full 40-minute length documentary, today we simply do not have the computational power to actually create these things, because I need GPU, because I need access that Eyal just concedes that everyone is going to have, and I do not have these things today. The impacts of this are crucial, right? Because we now see that this affects all people who use these things, all right? Now, all ages, all groups, all religions, specifically how they're impacted, is that they're being spammed continuously with endless amounts of propaganda and of fake news that is telling them other people are wrong, other people do not have the same rights as you, other people are inferior to you. Right? Now you search for certain extremists and you become more and more extreme, and this is the actual process that happens, right? Nobody is born an extremist. It happens gradually. But what we say here is that if you have infinitely amount of these videos and of this media that actually makes them, and in today's social media age, this is how it happens, then we say that it is going to happen infinitely faster because I have more quantity and more quality, like Eyal tells us. Now, notice, so this means just more racism, systemic and social, more violence and more voting on social and political issues that actively harm groups that do not have a say in this, because this impact, because this AI is inescapable. Even if you do not opt into it yourself, you are still exposed. You are still exposed to it on a very large level. Now they're going to now the POI they're going to give me, look, is but you can still do other liberal propaganda, right? No, not why this is not symmetric. Firstly, because it is just more attractive to do to consume this bad media, because it is more emotional. It is more of an emotional experience. It is more mysterious, and it plays into like the hidden human desires to believe in some of these conspiracies, to subconsciously know that maybe I am harmed by other people. But secondly, these networks already exist, right? And yes, you can fight them, but now it just makes their power and influence so much more that you actually cannot filter out what is real and what is not. Before the next point, yes, Tal.
malicious actors act on both sides of the house, and I know they act, so I am careful. The unique impact for the debate is being able to create for myself. This is what changes only on our side.
You don't know now because there's too many of these media. When there's a small amount and you're not exposed to it almost ever, then you probably know when you are exposed to it. But when you cannot tell the difference and the distribution is like 50-50, then it's harder to tell. Why do we get less, second point, why do we get less enjoyment directly flipping OG? Because how AI actually works is that it's not a godlike device, right? It learns from other, like I'm shocked no one ever says this, right? It learns from other data that has been already out there in the world, i.e. art forms that have already been created by humans. This means that AI doesn't actually have that creativity, but rather, even if it makes small changes, it cannot still make the grandiose twist, the very big revolutions in art that we've seen humans make throughout history, because it can only rely on what has been made before it. What does this mean? This means that in the short term, yes, I enjoy very much, but these peaks of happiness erode over time, because I'm constantly looking for new things to enjoy more and more, but I get the same thing. I get the same twists, I get the same genres, I get the same content, but in a little bit of a different reskin, a recolor of some sorts. But I tell myself, okay, let's try another time. Maybe I change the prompt a little bit. Maybe I use a different random scene. Maybe I just need to try again. But you don't get this after you're addicted and after you're used to getting a good content again and again and again. Your happiness from it erodes. Notice, OG's impacts are very, very short term, but we explain to you that we get deep and innate dissatisfaction from art for as long as I continue to use this device after this initial happiness has gone, and we are very, very proud to oppose.
I thank the speaker for the speech and conclude the government case. Have we got all the government clear? Here.
Oh my God.
מתחיל ב-3, 2, 1. Two cases in my speech. I will go into why freedom of expression and political expression is more important than sheer happiness or entertainment value of art. And second, I will explain why in our side we the best team to prove the most expression and most political diversification and things like that. Just like external rebuttals to what we heard from the previous speaker. He says that what is unique about this technology that it's very hard to differentiate between what is fake and what is not, unlike deep fake that you can see in your eyes. So I think that in deep fake 1.0 or 2.0 it's possible, but in the latest versions this is not something that you can differentiate. Why is that important? Because it really minimizes the case, but beyond that we think that what we have tech companies that say, look, a human eyes don't see, but we can create an algorithm that tells you, look, this is deep fake, this is fake. Why it's important? Because we don't hear any analysis why it's not likely to happen in this generalized, personalized whatever in this model happen. We think that for the same extent that they're able to make this algorithm for deep fake, they would do that for us. Second of all, we think that Facebook and Twitter, we see them having a huge pressure to do fact-checking and to do filtering those feeds. We think that every way that we have the technology and also the political motivation, because that's basically what we see in the status quo, that Trump is being banned, and if you have fake news, it's being flagged. We think that it's very likely to happen. And even if you don't believe all that, please note that they just assume that fascists and racists can use this tool, but for some reason that is unclear for me, progressive would never use that, and we would never use to say, oh, this is a war between factions, we can also use that. Beyond that, this is not just claiming this is symmetrical, this is actually flipping, because under status quo, I think that usually the people that are more conservative and more privileged have more money to make like a better like a deep fake, or to have better like actors to play something that would be fake news. When we're talking about progressive, they're usually the people who are disenfranchised, the people that are minority, they don't have the money. So I think that actually this tool is actually helping those who are in the worst of position. So even if it's not symmetrical, it's probably falling to our side, because progressive will have much more to gain from that than the racist and like the conservative that rule under status quo most of the resources and things like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about entertainment against expression. We think that OG is doing a good job at showing that there is a certain delta regarding entertainment. Why they fail to do is to explain why this is the metric. I literally quote them, they say, we want to maximize utility. I can say, like, to what extent are you extending that, and why people like don't have, like, let's say I'm enjoying Marvel movies and I have like 50 in Disney Plus, now I will have 100, I just don't see that anyone that is countless, I just don't see how important is that. But freedom of expression is much more important. Why? Because we think that it's a freedom of you to actually express to yourself in the way that you see yourself the most convincing. We think that many people, for example, let's say that I want to make a movie about the corruption in the Kremlin, and to have scenes, for example, within the building in the Kremlin or in the Red Square. This is something that I cannot do in status quo, because obviously people will arrest me, the Russian government. Also, we think that if I want to make like a horror movie about the experience of Latin Americans, I cannot do that because nobody will actually fund that. But I think that many people, especially from Latin American, let's say, descendancy, will find it important. And also the creators themselves think that it's just the right. Please know that the right to freedom of expression is not just to voice your opinion. It's to voice your opinion in the way that you think is most persuasive, to the fact that you can persuade other people to act. Because oftentimes the delta between me staying at home and not going to protest and going to protest is the amount of how much I care about things. Yes, I can still read a blog post, but we think that at the moment that it's a movie and it's music and things that are going on about my emotions, this is making a huge delta that is very important, both for practical claim that we have more demonstration and more people caring about things that we care, and second of all, because this is part of like freedom of expression, not to have solely the freedom of expression, but to do that in the way that you see the best fitting. Why we have more expression on our side? Yes, because opening opposition say, I already gave in the PY explanation that suggestion about Nigerian writers happen more on our side, or suggestion happen on both sides. We think that just assert that at the moment that I have this personalized machine, I will just be stuck inside my head, and I will always consume only the things that I create. This is very unlikely. In order to create things that I enjoy, I need to think about the right phrasing, and I need to rephrase that, and then the AI didn't do exactly what I meant. So I need to think that it's a lot of job, that not everybody have the time or want to do this effort. Second of all, we think that very likely that if somebody, I probably know that I have maybe ideas that I like, but other people have ideas that I might like as well, and I cannot think about it because I didn't experience the life from their perspective, or because they just happen to have better cases for me. Thank you, Boaz, for a lovely competition. We think that at the point that you are aware that other people will have good ideas, at the point that you still have sharing on Facebook and Instagram, things that are good, we think that you have sharing and you have caring. Also, let's talk a bit about OG, because you know what, before I will take closing. Opening.
On your side, you have art that people want to watch because they're going to watch their own creation. On our side, we're going to have people doing life without an option to reveal it. When you
Thank you. On our side, yes, people like to see their art, but it's not mutually exclusive. We've seen other people's art. I just gave a minute of analysis because it will become some of it viral on social media, because I know other people have ideas and things like that. Let's talk about OG. OG say they hear it in us all the time because they say something about minorities. We actually explain you how it relates actually to freedom of expression, how it relates to actually practical impact of actually making change in the world. Yes, we do agree that for a certain extent they did have this more in this case about having minorities, but I think that they didn't explain why this is a debate when they actually claim the otherwise, that they think the internet is much more important. So therefore, for lack of analysis, we don't think that they compare to ours. Let's talk about, we did a POI for us. The people ask us why AI is required in status quo. We feel that all the analysis of Boaz already answered that, but if it wasn't clear already, I just want to reiterate that. Because you cannot have some money, and if you have like small community, it won't be financially beneficial. Because something CGI too expensive, and we think that shooting in the Kremlin or Red Square is something that legally you cannot do on their side, but basically you can do in our side when you can just tell the AI that the syntax in the Kremlin, for example. For all these reasons, I'm very happy to propose.
Thanks very much. If we could on the West, the better have a little bit. I had to come on the position with
חשבתי על זה.
Ayal, are you good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. It's late, it's dark, it's hot. Please bear with me for like 5 minutes, 15 seconds. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. 3 clashes in this debate. The first one is about creators, the second one is where we get better media, the third one is about abuses and political damages this will create. And before I get into that, a rebuttal to CG's case, right? So CG tried to talk to us about freedom of speech and why it's the most important thing in the world. We think, A, we're not sure what's so unique, right? These communities have the ability to make blog posts, to create stories, to share their oral history. We understand that this is somewhat better because these are movies and it's visual. We think it already happens in status quo. It's not that big of a deal. But more importantly, notice that these communities, inherently because of their characterization, are A, pretty small, and B, live in repressive regimes where they're actively hunted and where they can't do these things legally. And so we think maybe they have some impact on the population itself, right? Maybe it tells its story slightly better. I make a better story about my grandparents. We think that's not that big of an impact, especially when we're talking about such a small population. We think this whole idea that I'll disseminate my views and everyone will hear my story and my side of stuff is simply unreasonable because they're in repressive regimes, because they can't do this, because it's illegal, because it is tracked, and because they face prison time if they do it. And so we think this whole analysis is unlikely, probably won't happen, and not that impactful. Let's get into the clashes. Firstly, about creators, right? Because opening half talks about creators and whether they're damaged or not damaged and how important is it. This is also about Tal's idea that you get to share your personality because she masks it as though we're talking about just the average person, but the type of people who want to share their personality and for whom it's important are exactly the type of creators Olo is talking about. We think that slash is simply not important here. A, because again, this is a small community of people. Our impacts, both about quality of art and about political damages, affect the entire population. They affect everyone to a meaningful extent, and could to actual violence, which is much more important than this. Secondly, we think these people can still pursue it as a hobby, can still do it for fun, can still create stuff, which is not that, which makes it less substantial. And thirdly, we think they're analogous to other groups of people who have lost their jobs. We think they're like artisans who had passions for creating certain objects, but now no longer can do it as a profession because of advancement. OO has not shown us why this is unique. Second clash, about the quality of art, right? Because OG tries to tell us that it is accessible and diverse, and mostly they try to talk about why it's personalized, why it's unique to every person. We think all of these cases simply don't stand to what happens in reality. Because in reality, most people already have, or most people who have access to the internet, which is the community we're talking about, already can get whatever TV show they want. I have the idea that I can't get this season 8 of some obscure manga is simply not true in status quo, right? You can get it. You just go online, you find the torrent, it's fairly easy, you download it, it takes 10-15 minutes, and you watch whatever you want. The reason people don't do it is because they don't want to, because they're lazy, because they want the easiest thing, which is why on your side, it will also not happen because for the victim reason, they're not going to spend time and energy creating something that's perfectly tailored to them. They're going to get whatever the AI generates most easily. And again, about presentation, we think the most watched show on Netflix is Friends because it is the easiest, because it's low common denominator, because I don't have to think about it, and so this is likely to happen in our world. And this is where Tomer comes in, right? Because Tomer tells you that what AI does is look at previous preferences and previous decisions and tells you and gives you something that's very similar because it fits. It knows what happened and it predicts what will happen in the future. And so over time, this means that you get content that's repetitive, that's fairly the same. Even if you try to change, if you try to do something that's slightly different, like OG is saying, what you're going to get is exactly what they're saying. You're going to get the same essential TV show because that's what's easiest for the AI and why I think it does, just with a different skin. This time in space, this time in the jungle, this time about your family. It's not meaningful, it's not that different, and so their impact here doesn't stand. And overall, this means people long-term get the same TV shows over and over again. They'll watch it because it's easy and because they're lazy and because they just want simple entertainment. But it's bad for them, and we don't want that. We want people to get better television. We think limiting your choices and making you choose from the existing variety is better for you and makes you happier, and we think this is somewhat realistic, but still good. We think we're above 00. And it does because they tell you you're less exposed to art, to new ideas and new concepts. We think this is less important. We think most people mostly deal with art to have fun, to enjoy themselves, and to just pass the time. And impacting people in this way is much more significant than maybe not seeing minorities on TV, I suppose.
Countries like the Congo can't limit any YouTube and TikTok video that enable identity and freedom of speech, which are an inherent right that people agree to die for. We proved why we have that right, and thus are above any hedonistic enjoyment of art.
You don't hurt that right. You give just a different avenue of fulfilling it. This avenue is already existing. We think your new one is maybe slightly better. It is not that significant, especially to poor populations in the Congo who don't have access to the internet and to electricity. No, I'm not going to take it. Second, last flash and most important flash about abuse, right? Because as Tomer tells you, this is the most important. This affects everyone. This leads to actual violence and actual changes and is much more important than anything else. Tries to tell you that people will create deep fakes and make it distributed and it's harmful. They don't show you the extent, they don't show you how this happens, they don't show you why people do it in a way that's meaningful different from the present. And Tomer gets there, right? He tells you exactly why it's likely to happen. He tells you that people are incentivized, that people want to use this to create content that's more digestible, that's politically extreme, that people are going to buy into. And he tells you why people will buy into it, right? He tells you it looks the same as other stuff. It comes from a credible source. It's very easy to produce gigantic amounts of it, and so you're inundated with it constantly, and maybe the first one won't catch, and the second one won't, but the 50th will, or the 52nd, and so people will get pulled into the rabbit hole. And this means that extremes gets more extreme because they digest this content and view it constantly, and it gets more and more extreme as the AI learns them and recommends it. And moderate people are more likely to become extreme because now this type of media is more prevalent, more effective, and more targeted toward them, and is super easy and reliable to produce. CG tries to tell us that progressives will do the same. We think A, progressives are not as organized and so on like to do it. B, they're simply not as catching, right? Telling you how great African Americans is simply not as effective as telling you how horrible and terrible they are. And thirdly, we think that even if it does, them doing some good and us doing tremendous damage still falls on our side. In the way we're above over here because we've shown you greater impacts because that physical violence is worse. In deep news, we have shown you how the process happens, why it happens, why these people are incentivized to do it, and why people are actually receptive to this, and it doesn't stay on my computer. And obviously we're above OG's idea that reputation will stop it because it doesn't stop in a status quo, and so it won't stop it tomorrow. And for all of these reasons, we're very proud to oppose.